Looking at the score for Man City and the Paris FC game, you'd think that Man City played around Paris FC for most of the game. And although City had most of the ball, Paris FC were actually able to get half the amount of shots on goal that City did, and half of those shots were actually on target as well. So how and why were City able to annihilate Paris FC in the recent Champions League Qualifiers game? Now in lineup, Man City lined up in a 4-3-3, while Paris FC lined up in a 4-2-3-1. And while Paris decided to use a 4-3-3 and an occasional 4-4-2 in defense, City on the other hand decided to stick with a 4-3-3 in defense and build up. However, during their attack, City's aim was to send all three attackers as well as their two attacking midfielders into the box to get as many bodies in there as possible. And I think the biggest question asked of Gareth Taylor for the upcoming season was that who was he going to pick in midfield, Vivianne Miedema or Just Park? And while everyone was busy guessing, Gareth Taylor said, you know what, just screw this and I'll put both of them on the field. And well, I guess the results speak for themselves because both Vivianne Miedema and Just Park bagged in 1 and 2 goals respectively in this game. Now in build-up, Man City's plan was actually quite simple. The aim was to play the ball to one of the centre mids, and then they would send the ball out to one of the wingers, and the wingers would then look to cross. And City did this lavishly throughout the game. Defenders Alexandri or Greenwood would pick the ball up from the goalkeeper and then pass it to Hasegawa, who would then pick out either Vivianne Miedema or Just Park, and they would then pick out one of the wingers, Hemp or Fujino, and then have them cross the ball into the box. Now City's choice of exploiting space was to use their attacking midfielders and to get them to sit behind their markers and then perform a check-in check-out movement to receive the ball from their defensive midfielder Hasegawa. And from here, the attacking midfielders, either Vivianne Miedema or Just Park, will look to play the ball out wide, and then on the wide end, the attacking midfielder, the winger, and the fullback, sometimes even Hasegawa, would look to combine and play around the Paris FC players before playing it in behind their defense, where the attacking midfielder or the winger would look to exploit that space. So basically, they would outnumber the Paris FC players on the wide end, and then one of the attacking midfielders or the winger would run in behind the defense into the half space, where they would receive the ball and then aim to cross it in. Now, whenever the ball was played into the center, Mary Fowler would also look to drop deep and receive the ball almost like a false nine. And because she dropped deep, the defender that was marking her would also follow her run, leaving space in behind for then Vivianne Miedema to exploit. But since Vivianne Miedema's run was well marked by the Paris FC player, this did not really work out for Man City, but you could see this happening throughout the game. And Mary Fowler would also occasionally rotate with Miedema, allowing her to move into the striker space. And when Miedema came off in the second half, you could see this happening with Just Park. Now, when not in possession, City didn't actually look to press very high, and they decided to sit back and win their balls through the loose passes and heavy touches made by the Paris FC players. Although when the ball was in the defensive third of the Paris FC team, City did look to put a lot of pressure onto the centre-backs and also the keeper to try and win the ball as high as possible. Now, Paris FC, on the other hand, used the 4-3-3 in defense, and they were also positionally quite disciplined, which probably explains why City struggled to find a rhythm in the first 30 minutes of the game. And they also attempted to play out the back mostly throughout the game, but most of their balls were intercepted, and this then caused them to send long balls to their teammates. But this didn't actually do much for them because a lot of those passes were loose passes, and sometimes the passes were just not received by the player because they were not played properly to the player. Now, when it came to pressing, Paris FC occasionally pressed high, but if the ball was near the Man City goal or when the ball was played to the Man City keeper Yamashita, then their aim was to actually press very aggressively. But despite the aggressive presses, Yamashita did pull off an Alisson backer quite a few times, leaving the Paris FC striker chasing his shadows. And speaking about goals, the first goal that we see was that Just Park would do an in and out movement to receive the ball, and then she passes it to Fujino, and as they pass the ball around, Just Park then tells Fujino to pass the ball to Hasegawa, which then allows herself to be free and to exploit the space in behind the defense. And as she receives the ball from Hasegawa, she then crosses it in, and Vivianne Miedema once again shows the world why she's the GOAT, and she scores an acrobatic goal in her starting debut for the team. Now, the second goal was just individual brilliance by Just Park. She does everything on her own and she follows her run, and then she plays a one-touch pass with Mary Fowler and Hemp, and she finishes it on goal. Now, a great high press from Mary Fowler and a mistake by the goalkeeper meant that City were able to lock in their third goal of the game. As for the fourth goal, Hemp does a fake run towards goal, and then she loses her marker as she hits the ball, and with Just Park arriving late into the box, it meant that no one was marking her and she had a free shot at goal. And as for the fifth goal, the run that Lauren Hemp makes puts their fullback and the centre-back into confusion, and I do believe that the centre-back should have followed Lauren Hemp instead of leaving her to the fullback, but since she leaves her, the fullback doesn't know where she is because she's on a blind side, and then Lauren Hemp is allowed to hit the ball on target, which then hits the post, only to leave Chloe Kelly finishing it. Now overall, City seem to be looking in good form, and everyone will be eager to see how Gareth Taylor's side will fare up to the Gunners on Sunday, especially after the Reds have suffered an insufferable loss to the Swedish side BK Häcken.